Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hi there, welcome to the COB. An absolute pleasure to be here with you on the 19th of January. It is a Monday, so we've got a solid 4 days left in this trading week. Not a great start to the week. Now, we did gain, about 1.7% over the trading week last week, down by about 1/4%. And it's in large part because we did see the big banks coming under quite a bit of pressure. Fortescue, interestingly, that was mentioned on the call today, in fact, it's down by 2.2%. We did see China data come through today, growth coming through last year at 5%. Even though we're seeing a little bit of consolidation in the gold price. I mean, it did hit another record high earlier in the session, but lots of calls, at least, for some consolidation in the gold price. The gold miners were the real standout performers today. Linus as well, up by 5.25%. Okay, so that's the CIBO Australia Index. I'll get you across where the S&P ASX 200 finishes in just a few minutes' time. What markets probably haven't reacted to, but are just a little bit cautious on, are these tariff threats coming from the US president toward European countries that don't roll over and accept the fact that he wants Greenland. So that, I suppose, is putting a little bit of trepidation out there in the market. How will it end up? There might be some strong words coming through at Davos, but the markets really don't care until, I guess, it changes what's happening in the bond market or changes expectations for global growth or company profits. So a bit of a flight to safety, and that 5% target being hit, as I mentioned, in China. So let's take a look then at where we're seeing some of the big moves coming through sector-wise today. I had a really great chat with Claude Walker from A Rich Life earlier today. So talking about where he's seeing value in some of these beaten up software companies, you could call them tech names, but Technology One was on his list. So you'll want to go to the website, ausbiz.com.au, and look for that interview. You can just search Claude Walker or go to All the Latest, see all, and you can find that interview there. Look, we'll get some expert commentary from my guest here in the studio with me. I'm not going to give it away just yet. But yeah, we'll find out what was moving next DC as well. So 8 out of the 11 sectors were lower today. That included infotech, telcos, consumer discretionaries, financials, but the materials space, I guess with an effort from Rio Tinto, South32, and the gold miners, did end higher. And there you go, pretty picture being painted there. Evolution Mining up by 3%, Genesis up by 3.9%. All right, let's get across some of the corporate stories quickly. And NextDC says the application for its M4 Melbourne data centre has received the green light from the Victorian Minister for Planning. Meanwhile, NRW Holdings says one of its subsidiaries has signed a $750 million contract with TEC Coal in Queensland. Along the same lines, McMahon Holdings says that one of its subsidiaries has been awarded a $120 million contract with Rio. And Nickel Industries seesawed today on a downbeat earnings outlook. Amero, on the flip side though, did have a really good day on upbeat half-year earnings, and PolyNovo, pretty flat though. It saw group sales rise by 1/4 to $68 million in unaudited results that came through for the financial year. And Neuren has told the ASX that it considers recent sale projections for its debut Rett syndrome treatment to be material. So there was a bit of a query put forth by the ASX, which has shaken a little bit of confidence, but Neuren did have a good week last week. All right, drum roll please. My guest here with me in studio is Joshua Barker from Barker Wealth. Hey Josh.
Good to be here.
Good to be with you. So what do you make of the day that was?
Yeah, really interesting. We obviously had a great week last week, and that was quite outperforming compared to the US, which sort of stayed flat around those all-time highs, at least for the time being. So yeah, look, I think the main focus of the market today, especially without a lead from Wall Street tonight, is that Chinese data and all of the companies sensitive to that. So sort of saw Fortescue and a few of the other China-related iron ore names peel off a little bit. The numbers were, I think, largely I give it a pass mark. It was, seemingly in line with expectations. Retail sales is pretty insignificant in terms of their market, but it's more about that sort of industrial production and economic growth numbers coming through seemingly okay. I think BHP has had a great rally over the last week was up 5% and it's up 10% for the month. I think it's really climbed off those lows. So look, it has moved quite well, and I think we're just seeing a little bit of consolidation in a few of those names after they've had such a good rally for what's been probably a 6-month period.
Yeah, it's hard to look past some of the gains that we've seen and the enthusiasm for commodities to start this year. But yeah, that China GDP growth target was hit. I suppose it's just some of the domestic issues that are not getting resolved very quickly. But I had a chat with Andrew Swan from Man Group earlier, and if you find that online, worth a listen, because equities in Asia have been quietly outperforming.
Yeah.
Okay, so just get across some of the news. There wasn't big corporate news today. We're in that little bit of a funny period before reporting season picks up in a meaningful way. But what do you make of that next DC move? Because it sort of went against the grain in the tech space.
Yeah, well, I think it just really reiterates that it's the senior, more established player in its field. It's pretty much got hubs in every city at the moment, and that's really just continuing on. So, it's such a heavily capital expenditure type of business, but I think given all the noise at the moment going on in the markets, it's good to sort of just focus on where money's flowing and where the capital's being injected, and it is in data centers. It's in those sort of plays where the money's being spent, but the fruits of that labour will come in the future. And I think NextDC is the front-running horse, especially in the ASX market. It's really just continuing on to start to see the benefits of that and reinvest those into new centres like they announced in Melbourne.
Yeah, okay. I suppose gold, it is the safe haven trade, right? Gold and silver hitting those record highs, and that's to do with Trump and his ambitions for Greenland, really sort of sending a shiver down the spine of many investors. Like, this isn't a full-out panic stations just yet, but the world's a complicated place.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen there because it is pretty unprecedented for a lot of the things that he's doing, as in true Trump nature. So. It's really interesting in terms of, what is the landscape there. But again, gold prices seem to be going up. Just walking over here to the studio. Again, the bullion store was a line out the door once more. Oh, was it? So, that's at continued back on. Yep. So I think that it's definitely not over for the gold rally for the time being. And, Trump's really putting those investors comfortably in their safe haven at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, it's incredible. We saw copper in Shanghai slipping a little bit on profit taking. Iron ore hitting that 2-week low because, of course, the China property woes are not over just yet. So Fortescue, I'm putting you on the spot. Both of my guests today called it a buy because they're pretty positive on commodities in general, and also, perhaps the China kick-along coming sometime this year. Are you positive? Like, would you rather be in a Fortescue where there's potential for further upside or a BHP that's trading around record highs?
Yeah, there is a little bit of a value gap at the moment between Fortescue and BHP if you sort of look from 18 months ago, roughly. And I guess that's probably due to what you mentioned, the copper price and having that exposure there. Rio's pretty much in line with BHP on a relative basis. So, yeah, there is that slight value gap, but it's going to move like a dog wagging its tail. Fortescue's at the end of the tail, and those more diversified plays that aren't going to move around as much. So I do like the exposure to China again. I think the overall market has been through probably a rough 5 years, but I think that ship is starting to turn, and it's going to get back to some 5+% GDP growth in that area. It was at 8 for so long. There's no reason why it can't get back to that over time. It's just, sort of had these massive shutdowns, and then that's caused some pretty systematic issues. But I think it's starting to really stand on its own feet without the government stimulus needing to come through. So I am happy to be exposed to China. Obviously, copper's had a great run. That could see some profit taking come in. And iron ore, it's been a bit unloved, so that could be the next area to move higher anyway.
Are you buying into the lithium love narrative, or are you a bit cautious?
No, a little bit cautious. It's somewhat surprising to see PLS, the larger name in our market, pretty much back to all-time highs if you take into account volatility. So it's traded just above $5 in the past when the lithium price was quadruple what it is now, and it's just under $5. So I think that's a little bit of a concern from the market getting a little bit excited. But if it does eventuate that lithium just goes on up from here, that'll filter down through the market cap. But PLS is my favourite name, and I wouldn't be buying that now, just under $5.
Right. Okay.
No, it's pretty high valuation.
Yeah,
so.
so a word of caution if you're listening out there. You excited for reporting season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a tough one. I really do. I think the financials have had such a good run in terms of reporting for so long. So have the discretionary names. I think that's probably an area of the market that just can't keep continuing to outperform like it has done, to the surprise of the market over the last probably 3 or 4 reporting seasons. That being said, I'm pretty surprised to see a lot of our really good quality tech names, Xero, real estate, those sort of names, as low as they are. So Xero reports off cycle, but I think a lot of the other names should be something to look at, definitely in reporting season. I think generally they're quite cheap at the moment. So I think as long as there's nothing wrong with the business, so it's just dodging minefields in that sector at the moment, like company specific things like with WiseTech and stuff. So as long as there's nothing wrong with the company, I think the overall subsector is really quite attractive, especially on a long-term basis.
Yeah. So Xero, Technology One,
Yeah.
Pro Medicus, does that sort of, would you
Yeah,
still
a
want
little
to
bit
see
in
more
the health space, sort of more of the software as a service businesses.
Okay.
So I think they've just got really good monopoly on their industries. Like real estate still has the majority of the market. So, they're just really good quality names. And I think they will have their time again in the sun.
Josh Barker Wealth, nice to see you.
Thanks
for
having
coming
me.
in.
Appreciate it.
All right, lots to think about there. Stock of the day was Reliance Worldwide, and I discussed that with our experts Jonathan Takadina from MPC Markets and David Lane from Ord's Minute.
Interested about the comments about copper, because in some respects I actually see Reliance Worldwide as being a beneficiary of the strength in the copper price, because their main product is the shark bite, which is effectively using plastic or PVC piping in bathrooms. It's often referred to as behind the wall type fittings, where it's actually a replacement for copper. So I think with the high prices of copper, I would have thought that it should be a little bit of a beneficiary from that.
The bond markets is not playing ball, and what we're seeing there is that those mortgage rates aren't coming down over there. So I think that is a massive headwind into their markets there. Flow onto Reliance Worldwide is that just means that there'll be less building activity over there, and so I think that it's going to be a tough road ahead for them. And you've seen it in the share price when the sort of housing stocks started to rally. Reliance Worldwide didn't catch a bid. It kind of just went sideways, and then now with the tailwind, with the headwinds in there, and the bad news today, we're back down at the bottom end of the range. So it's an avoid for me. I wouldn't want to be in there. If we start to see a bit of a recovery in the housing sector, I would have a look at it, but I'd want to see a few other leading indicators show me some signs, but I don't see that at the moment.
Not a lot of love for Reliance Worldwide. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak with the company in reporting season. They were a little bit, my guess, we're a little bit at loggerheads at the impact that copper would likely have on Reliance Worldwide going forward. Okay, let's take a look at the market leaders today. I think we just had them up briefly. Silex Systems. Oh, that one's flown under my radar today. It's up by 10%. Catalyst Metals did have a high-grade zone discovered below one of its resources, the really nicely named Cinnamon resource. Paladin in the uranium space, also looking pretty good, putting on 7%. It did have its price target lifted 1.6% to $12.70 per share by Canaccord Genuity. Lynas, again, just can't sort of put a foot wrong these days. We're very obsessed with critical metals. And look, they just continue to get bid higher. Bellevue Gold as well in the gold space amongst the winners. Let's flip the page though. A2 Milk was in a trading halt. I just want to double check that it is out and find out what the news is for you. Down by 11%. Responding to an ASX price query. I actually don't have the details in front of me, but safe to say that it was slapped with a speeding ticket, I guess. It did pause its trading, but it is back online, down by 10%. And we've had Life360 file an SEC Form 4 Pro Medicus. That was in my chat with Claude Walker from A Rich Life today. It has told us when it will be releasing its results, so we'll make sure that we put a request in with Sam Huppert and speak with him then. There's a Reliance Worldwide broker downgrade coming through, sending shares 4% lower. All right, in the small cap space, Amero, we already talked about that one. Kalex up by 16%, and Bougainville Copper up by 15% to $1.12. Those that did lag the market, Canatico off by close to 11%. It was out with an update last week. Lumos Diagnostics as well, out with an update today, down by 9%. And Botanix Pharma shedding 7%. Well, tonight we have U.S. markets closed for Martin Luther King Day. In the EU, we get the final inflation read, as well as in Canada, a final inflation read there. Tomorrow here locally, we get an operational review coming through from BHP, also a quarterly update from Hub24, Telix, Korea, and we get China setting its 5-year loan prime rate. Okay, so here is the finish for the CIBO Australia Index. The S&P ASX 200 closing down by 0.3% to 8,874. USE minis are trading and they are both lower. Around the region, only China's mainland market and the South Korean Kospi is doing well. We do have pressure coming through on the Hang Seng and in Japan as we round out this session here in Australia. It's been wonderful to be here with you throughout the day today. Please do catch up with anything you may have missed online. And we look forward to seeing you when we are live once again tomorrow.